Hi, Dr. Bill here. Today I'll be reviewing this solar octagonal G-Shock. But first, I'll do my impression of a watch reviewer reviewing a G-Shock. I'll be referring to this watch as the GAB. I purchased the GAB at Zales for $150. There was no shipping cost. It was shipped quickly. The GAB came in this cool tin box. It came with a module guide. It also came with an international warranty card and a warranty manual, neither of which defined what the warranty period is. I did a cursory search of Casio's website to find out the warranty period and was unable to find this information. Casio makes a square-shaped, all-digital analog to the GAB for the same price, which I'll refer to as the Solar Square. I don't have the Solar Square. However, I do have an entry-level square G-Shock, which I'll refer to as the Basic Square. My Basic Square is identical in size to the Solar Square. The Solar Square has nearly identical features to my full metal G-Shock Square. The GAB is solar powered. It can run for 7 months without light when fully charged. You can sync your GAB's time with your phone using the Casio Watches app, which creates a Bluetooth connection to your GAB. The GAB's band has quick release tabs. This is a fantastic feature that allows people to easily replace bands without a tool and without going crazy. The GAB's interface is very easy to use and intuitive. The GAB has the same core features as the Solar Square. The GAB has 5 modes: timekeeping, which the watch is currently in, world time, stopwatch, countdown timer, and alarm. The mode you're in is indicated by where the red arrow in the left subdial is pointed at. I'm not going to go into the details of each mode, as this has been done to death by other reviewers, and anyone familiar with the G-Shock Square or any modern Casio digital watch will have a pretty good idea of how to operate the GAB. One nice feature that the GAB has that the Solar Square lacks is a power level indicator on the dial. If one has a Solar Square, one can still obtain the watch's power level using the G-Shock Connected app. Pressing the GAB's top right button lights the GAB's dial. By default, the light will stay on for 1.5 seconds. You can customize this setting so that the light stays on for 3 seconds. The GAB has numerous bells and whistles that I'm not going to cover, with exception to what Casio calls its, quote, hand shift feature, unquote, as this feature belies the significant design flaws of the GAB. If you keep the button for the light depressed and then press the lower left button, the hands will move out of the way of the display. This is the hand shift feature. I don't like that Casio is giving the light button duplicate functionality, as activating the light draws down the solar cell. I think Casio could have avoided the need for the hand shift feature with better design. Casio could have increased the size of the display, which would allow the text to be more readable when partially obstructed by the hands. Casio made the GAB significantly bigger than the Basic Square, yet failed to make use of the GAB's additional screen real estate. Casio could have extended the GAB's display into the GAB's top right quadrant. Some of the text in the GAB's display is tiny. Casio is trying to jam a large amount of information into very small displays. I don't have great eyesight. My eyes have to be positioned about 1/2 foot above the GAB's display in order to read some of the digital readouts. The GAB fits my 7-inch wrist fine, but it doesn't fit super comfortably like my Basic Square. I'm okay with a larger case size, provided this largeness adds functionality and or makes the watch easier to read, but this is not the case. I understand how the GAB's designers might have felt compelled to keep the hour hand short in order to minimize obstruction of the display, but the minute hand is short for no good reason. It should have extended out to the minute track. I think larger, more prominent skeleton hands might have worked better with the GAB. The GAB is a watch of awkward, not very pleasing compromises. You have an oversized dial with undersized hands and an undersized digital display in an oversized dial. I think increasing the size, or at least the readability of the handset, would have made the GAB a much better watch. Another issue with readability is the indexe's lack of contrast and lack of lume. Gray indexes against a black background is a very poor choice if one is aiming to make a watch readable. G-Shock defenders might argue that Casio was not shooting for readability with the GAB and claim that it is a stealth watch. If the GAB were truly a stealth watch, then one would expect the GAB to have a negative display like its non-solar quartz cousin, the GA2100-1A. But this is not the case. While the GAB's hands have lume, the indexes lack lume. This, to me, is a royal screwing of the consumer. Casio cannot be charging customers $150 for this glorified piece of plastic and skimp on lume. For me, the main reason to choose an anti-digital G-Shock over the all-digital square G-Shock is to have the ability to read the dial in darkness without having to press a fucking light. The GAB's lume has subpar staying power as well. Another big problem with the GAB is the crystal's horrible glare in indoor light. In bright outdoor light, the GAB's dial can be seen without a problem. The GAB uses a noisy radial reflective background that reminds me of reflective safety tape. Another issue with the GAB is the vulnerability of its crystal. Due to the GAB's enlarged dial, it has much more surface area than the basic square that can potentially get scratched. The basic square also has very hard protruding protective bumpers. The basic square was designed in a way that makes it difficult to scratch its crystal. Also, the plastic of the GAB's bezel is so soft that I can literally compress it with my fingers. The GAB's crystal is begging to get scratched. The GAB is easy to use, durable, and will probably last a good chunk of a person's lifetime before the power cell eventually dies. Also, Casio makes watch strap replacements a breeze. The main issue with the GAB is that it is poorly designed and egregiously overpriced. Should you buy a solar square instead? I'm not sure. The basic square doesn't leave me enough room to get my fingers in to press its buttons. I don't know if the solar square has this same issue. I love my full metal G-Shock, but I know full well that Casio is screwing me as I paid nearly $500 for a watch that doesn't have a sapphire crystal. For $3,500, you can get an MRG G-Shock which has a sapphire crystal. But if you pay just a little more, you can have a Tudor. And here is my impression of a watch reviewer on the phone. Thank you, Casio, for sending me these free G-Shocks and the sponsorship deal. Being a loyal little sycophant for you sure does pay.